With about 8 days until the election on November 5th, we have Donald Trump expanding the map more than the conventional 7 battleground states, but also keep in mind that he's also campaigning in places that are unorthodox. And so we're going to address that, and we're going to look at the most recent numbers as well. So, first and foremost, the consensus right now has Donald Trump winning the 7 swing states that are, again, conventional. So that would include Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Now, the difference is that, they don't put in certain states, okay? This includes New Hampshire, it includes Virginia, it includes Minnesota, it includes places like New Mexico, places that honestly you wouldn't expect Trump to win normally. But the map is tending to expand. In fact, you have Donald Trump campaigning at Madison Square Garden, which is huge for a couple different reasons. First and foremost, he's campaigning in New York, which in and of itself seems like a bad idea given that you ought to be spending your time in, let's say, Harrisburg or Detroit, but instead he's spending the time in New York. Now, this means a few different things. It means that he thinks he's already winning, and so therefore, actually, it's more productive to maybe drum up the popular vote margin in a big city like New York. It could mean that he just cares about the symbolism and he wants it to be this big event, and he doesn't care about, campaigning for a day in Pennsylvania because he's already winning, which is a good sign. Or is this something that's actually 5D chess? And so we're going to look into it right now. So the turnout for this rally was about 90,000. The capacity is about 20,000, but again, there were tens of thousands of people outside. And keep in mind that he had a star-studded cast for all intents and purposes. When you look at the list here, it's really impressive. He had obviously J.D. Vance, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, a bunch of Congress people. But look at this. He had RFK, he had Elon Musk, he had a ton of Tucker Carlson, Hulk Hogan, Dr. Phil, all sorts of guys. So now, I bring this up because it kind of points to a differing strategy. Again, in 2016, 2020, he was really deliberating and putting all of the eggs in the basket of obviously campaigning in the states that were really close. But now it seems like the math is different. And so when you're looking at internal polling, which again, the public does not have access to, but Trump does, he can see that, for example, he just offhandedly remarks that Alabama is 49 points Republican, which is pretty historically big. But imagine what sort of polling there is in the states that are actually considered blue. So, for instance, the states that voted for Obama twice and then also for Clinton and Biden. So, Virginia in that case, or let's say New Mexico. In all these cases, you'll notice that Trump is actually trying to expand the map, and I'm going to look into why. So let's check into how the schedule is looking like for the Trump rallies, because this is a big clue. All right, so Trump is going to have these rallies scheduled within the next 100 hours, most likely, okay? It's going to be Pennsylvania, which makes sense, Wisconsin twice, which makes sense. He has a big event coming up with Brett Favre, in fact, in Lambeau Field or something like that. Then you've got Georgia once, Nevada once, but here's the shocker at the end, okay? Virginia, he's going to Virginia with Glenn Youngkin and Lara Trump. Okay, that's November 2nd, I believe, or the 3rd. And then New Mexico one time as well, which again is really weird because you would think he would spend the resources more efficiently. But if the case is that he's actually up by, let's say, a percentage point in RCP with the top 7 states already enumerated here, then maybe he should take a stab at Virginia, take a stab at New Mexico, and maybe the map actually makes it make sense. It's hard to say either way what the smart thing here is to do. But if you already concede the premise that Trump will win the 312 electoral votes, then expanding the map does a couple different things. Number one, it gives him more of a mandate. Obviously, if you win by, let's say, 340 versus 312, it gets you more clout. And, him doing rallies in New York also drums up the popular vote more than it would if you were to go to Racine, Wisconsin or something. For that reason, that could actually explain what he's doing. But then beside that, there's also something called coattails in politics, but also down ballot races. So in this case, you might say, well, in New York in specific, there are about, I don't know, God knows, half a dozen seats that are actually really competitive that thanks largely to the midterm era in 2022 and Lee Zeldin running for governor really effectively and losing narrowly by like 6 in New York of all places where he should have lost by 25 generally. Well, those Republicans are the reason in New York are the reason why Mike Johnson has a sliver of a majority. Just imagine how different the country would look if the Democrats controlled the House these past couple years. So, for that reason and more, frankly, folks, we've got a situation in which Donald Trump wants to shore up the lower houses as to then obviously buoy support when he does become president. Again, all considering that he somehow wins the election and he actually gets inaugurated. So, big asks for sure, but it's very complicated how to deal with this. Now, I find this tweet right here from Eric Doherty to be pretty well encapsulating of what the vibe is for the campaign. So, first and foremost, let's address some of the cope from the Democrats. And by the Democrats, I mean the objective news sources like Politico. Well, they do this thing, with the playbook. And the playbook, it's, all nerdy. It's what Lalo's reading. It's like my newspaper. It's just all the little minutia of rallies and whatnot. But in this case, they have a thing called Who Won the Day. And in this case, they give it to Harris. Now, think about it. Donald Trump had a gigantic rally, which not even Kamala with Obama and Beyonce and Eminem and Kelly Rowland could not get anywhere near, 95,000 people in New York, New York. That being said, apparently she won the day because of God knows what. And Donald Trump, he's not winning, even though he just did that very impressive thing with all these celebrities, because it was her campaign events did not promote racism, spark a bipartisan backlash, and insult pivotal voting blocks. Buddy, please. Okay, so the spin is already in, so the media is biased. Okay, yeah, whatever. Y'all know that. But I mean, that's the way they're spinning it, which is really, really indicative of where the campaign is going, which is, again, not good news for Kamala Harris or any Democrat existing right now. Because think about it this way. For instance, when you have a defense attorney, they're always going to spin it for their client's benefit, whatever narrative they're trying to weave, okay? But to the extent that they have a narrative that is like flimsy or actually pretty strong, whether or not they're gaslighting pretty well or they find some technicality to get their client off of, you can tell how strong of a case they have. In this situation, obviously, with Harris, if their case is not Donald Trump is losing on the economy, the immigration, whatever, it's going to be, well, a comedian like 3 hours before Trump was on stage made a joke about like how Puerto Rico was an S-hole, which, again, I'm Mexican, so I'm not even going to defend the Puerto Ricans, but, you can't have mainstream media saying, oh, Puerto Ricans are a pivotal voting bloc. Okay, we'll see how that turns out. Because number one, Puerto Rico doesn't vote meaningfully in the election. But also, I mean, there's Puerto Ricans, in Florida? That's not going to matter. Okay, Puerto Ricans where? In New York? Not going to matter. What about Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania? I just doubt that, they're going to be like, oh, no, 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 no bueno, no bueno. It's like, I don't think they care. Now, to address this also, again, I'm nitpicking, it's 2 a.m. Look, I got you. First of all, look at the sort of headlines we're supposed to be getting from these objective reporters or whatever, okay? Trump's New York homecoming sparks backlash over vulgar remarks and whatnot. Okay, I mean, even the picture they take of, again, 100,000, whatever, like a huge arena. Awesome, badass. Okay, they're taking a blurred image of like Trump looking confused because they're like melding different images together to make it look bad. Like, what the fuck? It's like if you had a girl gossiping about another girl and like in reference to a picture had like a Photoshop of her like uglier on purpose. It's like so petty. It's so biased and it's so pathetic, frankly. It's actually astounding what the hell these people are resorting to nowadays. And also, think about it. Donald Trump, again, invites, like 20 different people to speak over the span of several hours. He obviously doesn't verify the transcript of whatever a freaking comedian says. And then the comedian makes an off-color joke about the colored people, like Puerto Ricans, okay? And what, now they're going to be like, oh, Trump, blah, blah, blah. Or even better yet, the liberals say, oh, Donald Trump had a rally 85 years to the day of when some, like Nazi whatever in the 1930s had some sort of event. And it's like, okay, well, do you think Trump even knew that happened before? Probably not. Isn't the whole point is that he doesn't read? But okay, yeah, granted. Okay, yeah, no, he totally did that symbolically. I just really doubt that. And I mean, for them to run with it is harkening back to the whole Russia hoax, the whole. Anyway, not to get too much in a tangent, but revisiting the post by Eric Doherty, let's address this. I think this is profoundly, again, really getting the vibe of what's going on here. So the current situation is Trump is on offense, Harris is scrambling on defense, so much so that she's trying to convince the people of the most democratic racial group in the country, in this case black people, to vote for her. Democrats trail the early voting in every Sun Belt battleground state. which is also true, right? Pennsylvania mail-in voting is 20 points more Republican than at this point in 2020, which is a huge deal. Okay, rural turnout is surging in Wisconsin versus Milwaukee, which is good. And then you look at black turnout is abysmal across the South, especially Georgia, North Carolina, and even Louisiana. As an aside, absolutely none of that is an opinion. None. It's all fact, which is true. Which is true, honestly, because think about it. Even with the early vote numbers, mail-in ballots, it's all looking really good for the former president. The narratives in the media are getting more and more pathetic, and these are not an October surprise, okay? You need, if you're Kamala, for Trump to do I was going to say commit a felony, but again, it's ironic, but he would literally have to do something Epstein level, I don't know, like actually on camera for him to really lose a lot of support. The good news about being Trump is that while, yes, you have a lot of baggage and a lot of people hate you, there's not much you can do in the span of like 8 days to have an opinion in the case of voting be swapped in such a drastic way that would negatively affect you if you're Donald Trump. So, like I said, it would have to be something completely insane. Like he would have to chop his own hand off on camera for him to lose the support of his base. And the base is turning out like crazy. And we'll see on November 5th how right I am about that as well. But anyway, yes, Trump is on the offensive. That's what my takeaway is for the video today, is that, again, he's going to New Mexico, he's going to Virginia. I'm damn sure he's confident that he will win the election, as am I. By how much is the real question. And anyways, I'll see you on the next one. Adios.